Feast mode activated. Hashtag hungry. Feedmemore.com.
Hello there friends, my name is Carter, the Gensokyo reviewer. Zune has said that Touhou 7 is 90% alcohol. Let's find out why. Warning. The following story is based on real-world events. Trust me. The year is 2003. The date, August 17th, Kamiket 64. A fat Japanese nerd stalks the spacious interior of the convention until something catches his eye. An anime, perhaps? No, upon closer inspection, it's a game.
こんにちは。私のゲームを買いたいですか?
A frail, bespectacled man sitting behind the counter asks.
機械翻訳エラー。
The fat nerd replies. And so, he returns home with a new game. A Touhou game. Slotting the disc into a stone wheel, which is what they had for computers in 2002, he opens the game and... tears well in his eyes. His hands start to shake. How could anything this beautiful be printed onto a disc? With a bit of apprehension, he presses New Game, selects a character, and begins. Touhou 7 is an up-scrolling shoot-'em-up developed by this guy, and this is the first Touhou game that people usually recommend for beginners. This is because, 1. The difficulty is balanced, 2. The mechanics are easy to grasp, and 3. It isn't crusty and decrepit like Touhou 6. According to Zune, Touhou's popularity spiked after Touhou 6, so he made Touhou 7 a bit more accessible, admitting that 1cc'ing normal in PCB is relatively easy. So, if you're completely new to Touhou, and I mean fresh off the "is this an anime" phase, I suggest you go play PCB first and then give this video a watch, because playing Touhou blind is an experience. So, let's play the game, or rather, you watch gameplay in the background while I explain it to you. PCB lets you play the ubiquitous Reimu or Marisa, as well as Sakuya, giving you a nice variety of shot types to play with, and dialogue to read, so the game never gets too stale. Reimu has her homing shot types, which, along with her smaller hitbox, makes her a good choice for beginners. Marisa has her bullet vomit and fast movement, and Sakuya has knives. Knives that you can control, the first instance of being able to have direct control over your shots in the series. And of course, you have your quintessential 4 Touhou difficulties: easy, normal, hard, and I'm going to kill myself. The mechanics are simple: Z to shoot, X to bomb, with a very, very forgiving amount of frames between you getting hit and actually losing a life for you to death bomb. And shift to slow down and focus your shots. To get more bombs, you collect these green bee things. To get more lives, you can pick them up, or collect enough score drops to earn yourself new life. Every Touhou game has a unique mechanic, and PCB's is the border of life. Basically, you collect enough of these pink things and you get an invincibility shield. On a surface level, it's a very easy system to grasp. If you play for high scores for some reason, I don't know why you would do that to yourself, you'll find that this simple system becomes very complex. Here's how it works. Just kidding, I'm not talking about the fucking scoring system that would make this video like 2 hours long. The game is divided into 6 stages. What?! Each with its own mid-boss and boss, which get progressively harder as you, well, progress. What?! There's also the extra stage, as well as a phantasm stage, a harder version of the extra stage which is unique to PCB. What?! I know, pretty freaking exciting stuff. But you want to know what's even more exciting? The sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. I'm just kidding, I have like 20 subscribers. As with all shoot 'em up games, I assume, because I've only played Touhou and Chicken Invaders, PCB's story is quite simple. This ghost princess, Yuyuko, wants her comically large tree to bloom, but because her tree is so huge, she needs to collect a huge amount of spring essence for it to bloom. So, like a good upper-class citizen, she steals it from the poor. This causes Gensokyo to just not have spring, and for some reason, it takes until May for anybody to do anything about it. Of course, like any good Touhou story, that isn't exactly the long and short of it, but let's save that for later. As your chosen protagonist follows the trail of missing spring, she meets many interesting characters along the way. Unfortunately, the first one you meet is Cerno, having been demoted from Stage 2 boss in EOSD to a Stage 1 mid-boss. Next, you meet Letty Whiterock, the Stage 1 boss. She's a winter yokai who is, big surprise, strongest in the wintertime. Therefore, she tries to stop you from finding the spring. However, she knows that spring is inevitable, so she isn't even trying. Though, in this case, I'm not even trying isn't a cope your buddy uses when he loses in COD.
God damn it!
According to Zune, Letty could cause an entire incident if she really wanted to. Though at this point, she hasn't appeared again for so long that I think it's safe to say Zune has no plans of actually showing that. Stage 2 brings you to Mayohiga, a village of cats. The mid-boss and boss for this stage is Chen, a cat. There's more to her than just being a cat, more on that later. Stage 3 brings you to wherever this is, where Alice, a recurring character from a time when Touhou looked like this, accosts you for literally no reason. She just kinda wants to. I mean, I guess that's a good enough reason on its own. I'll be right back, I'm gonna go fight my neighbor. Alright, back from the hospital and on to Stage 4. Stage 4 brings you up. The mid-boss is Lily White, who would later become a recurring character despite having barely any characterization. Get fucked, Letty. The boss for this stage is actually 3 people, the Prism River Sisters. Interestingly, the first time you fight multiple enemies at the same time in the Window series. This fight, and the stage in general, is also where PCB goes from relatively easy to you're going to die if you're not gamer necking and paying 100% attention. But who are the Prism River Sisters? Well, they're the closest thing Gensokyo has to a band, at least for now. They use their instruments to attack you, a trope that actually occurs in Touhou so often, it makes you wonder if Zune is 100% aware of the fact that his music is awesome. By the way, here's a little Gensokyo reviewer pro tip. The Prism River Sister you fight during non-spells depends on your character at first, but when all 3 attack you at the same time, it instead depends on which one you hit last, or which one you hit the most. I actually don't remember. Editor, who is just me at 2 AM, put that up on screen. The easiest one to fight is Lyrica. You want to fight her. Once you defeat the Prism River Sisters, the protagonist discovers that they could have just flown over the gate they were guarding, and it's on to Stage 5. Finally, the protagonist finds herself in the Netherworld, which is where Yuyuko resides, since she's, you know, a ghost. The mid-boss and stage boss for Stage 5 is the fan-favorite Yomu. Yumu. However you want to pronounce it, I don't really care. Oh, talking to myself again. Oh, time to take my pills. Yomu is 1/4 ghost, 1/4 human, 1/4 gardener, and 1/4 swordsmanship instructor, with the power to cover 2,000 yojana with 1 slash of her katana. Whatever the fuck a yojana is. She's the one who has been gathering all the spring on behalf of her lady, so you need to beat her up. She's not giving up without a fight though. She employs a tactic known as bullshit in order to defeat you. If you can overcome this, however, it's on to the 6th and final stage. Yomu returns as the Stage 6 mid-boss, practically risking her life in order to protect the whims of her mistress, who definitely appreciates her hard work and sacrifice. Speaking of her mistress, Yuyuko is the root cause of this nuclear winter in Gensokyo, just because she wanted to see her big pretty tree bloom, never once stopping to think about the consequences to herself or others. She's not malicious or anything, there's just not much going on under the hood, you know?
I mean, I'm hungry, but not as hungry as this guy. You know what I'm saying?
After a long, tense battle, the protagonist defeats Yuyuko and... Wow, what is this? This is beautiful. Wow, that was bullshit. Also, it wasn't beautiful. It was actually the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, after you beat Yuyuko, she trolls you with one final spell card.
It's called we do a little bit of trolling.
Except it's not Yuyuko who's attacking you with the spell card? Well, technically it is, but...
Find out more on this episode of Gensokyo Reviewer. You're watching Gensokyo Reviewer.
Of course, this isn't a Touhou game without an extra stage. Once you beat the normal game without losing all of your lives, you unlock the extra stage. Boy, is this one extra, in pretty much every sense of the term. The mid-boss for this extra stage is Chen, again. Remember when I said that there's more to her than meets the eye? Well, that's because she's the Shikigami, or familiar, of this girl, Ran. And Ran doesn't take too kindly to the protagonist beating the shit out of her familiar. So, you fight. But wait, hold on a minute. Why are we here in the first place? Redditors, assemble. We need to solve this mystery. Well, the extra stage takes place back in the Netherworld. Even though the incident has technically been resolved, there's a new one of sorts. Reimu notices that there are an unnatural amount of ghosts just walking around. And yes, in Gensokyo there is such thing as a normal amount of ghosts walking around. Marissa even remarks, "Man, I'm tired of flower viewings and phantom viewings. Thank you for the insightful commentary." Yuyuko explains that the phantoms are just sightseeing, nostalgic for the world of the living that they departed from so long ago. Reimu is actually fine with this, until she's told that ghosts don't believe in the power of the gods and therefore won't donate to her shrine. It's exorcising time. The border between the worlds of the living and the dead had been damaged from Yuyuko's shenanigans, and the person she asked to fix it is sleeping on the job, literally. So, the three protagonists play rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes to deal with it. I'm not making a joke, that's canon, and that's how we ended up here. The protagonist has to wake up Yuyuko's friend in order to get them to repair the barrier, but Yuyuko's friend's Shikigami won't let you through to see her because she's all fucked up about the protagonist beating up Yuyuko's friend Shikigami. Like, chill bro, chill. So, you beat up Ran, and for any other Touhou game that would be the end of the story, because you just beat the extra stage. But remember, Touhou 7 has a special Phantasm stage. Once you unlock it by clearing the extra stage and capturing 60 spell cards, which means getting through 60 different spell cards without bombing or dying, different difficulties count, you finally figure out that it's just a reskinned extra stage that's slightly harder. Yeah, it was a bit disappointing when I first unlocked it all those years ago, aka April of last year, but more Touhou never hurts. In fact, Touhou 7 extra stage, or stages, has probably become my favorite extra stage out of the whole entire series. Even if that's just because it's one of the easiest, and therefore one of the ones I've played the most. The Phantasm stage's mid-boss is Ran, and the boss is probably one of the most famous Touhou characters of all time. Yukari, arguably the strongest yokai in Gensokyo, one of the creators of Gensokyo itself, and you have to beat her up to get her to repair the barrier once and for all, because she's a lazy fuck and thinks sleeping is more important. If that sounds scary, it isn't. The Phantasm stage is still fairly easy as far as Touhou extra stages go, especially if you beat it right after you beat the extra stage, because again, it's a reskin extra stage that's just slightly harder. The patterns are almost all pretty much the same, with a few slight variations here and there. So, the protagonist beats Yukari up after a long struggle, gets her to repair the barrier, and it's happily ever after for Gensokyo and the Yukomos. For now. That's where our story ends. Psych. Remember that final troll spell card at the end of Yuuko's fight? Well, it turns out that Yuuko wanted to make the tree bloom, not because she wanted to see it bloom, but because she wanted to break the magical seal on the tree. She read somewhere that if the seal on the tree was broken, her soul resting in the tree would be resurrected. Yuuko did not know, however, that it was her soul sealed within the tree. You see, when you fight Yuuko, the tree pretty much already unsealed. All it needs is the last remaining bit of spring left in Gensokyo, which the protagonist has conveniently brought right to Yuuko's doorstep. Yuuko's troll spell card is actually Yuuko's soul breaking out of the tree. Crazy shit, right? It gets crazier. When Yuuko was alive, she had the power to manipulate death, aka she can make people die whenever she wanted, Death Note style.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
Unlike Death Note though, instead of going mad with this power, Yuuko became so overcome with terror that she killed herself. Once she became a ghost, she figured out all about the terror over human life, and became the carefree, airheaded Yuuko we all know and love today. Someone, presumably Yukari, since she had known Yuuko since before her death, sealed Yuuko's soul into the tree with Yuuko's dead human body so that Yuuko would never have to know the pain of life again. For all time, Yuuko will remain as the princess of Netherworld and mistress of the long-dead Sagyoji clan. She shall never bear witness to the blooming of the Saigyo Ayakash. Isn't that a tearjerker? Well, there's one final plot twist. Yukari didn't actually seal Yuuko in the tree to protect her. She sealed the tree with Yuuko because the tree itself was a yokai tree, so beautiful that it would lure people to their deaths. And that's the story of Touhou 7 Perfect Cherry Blossom. Since we've now pretty much gotten the game itself out of the way, and a record, let's see, like 15 minutes, no less, let's move on to the music. You can't talk about a Touhou game without talking about the music after all, and Touhou 7's music is just chef d'oeuvre. The game starts off with this beautifully calming track that really makes you feel like you're beginning a grand adventure, and as you progress through the game, the tracks get less happy-go-lucky and more serious. But never losing their signature Touhou elegance. And the extra stage music, the stage themes themselves are catchy as hell. And Ran and Yukari's themes are just the icing on the cake. Perfect music for a dramatic final encounter, a long, hard struggle. Zune absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. According to him, he was aiming for songs that were Intense, emotional, and a little exotic. He definitely achieved that one. Exotic is an especially interesting word to use because there's really no music like Touhou music. It's a genre of its own. To close this section out, here's a ZUN quote directly from the omake text. I started composing thinking it would be great to have music that had a super mature feel to it. I think the music has grown up about a year's worth compared to EOSD. I've gotten a year older, and the people who played EOSD have probably gotten at least a year older too, so yeah, in short, Touhou music is good, nothing new there. Let's talk about the impact that Touhou 7 has had on the wider Touhou sphere, and if there's any game that can even come close to EOSD's level of popularity, it's Touhou 7, which makes sense since it's right after EOSD. These are the classic games that have been around forever, whose characters and music introduce people to the series and never really go away after that. It's part of what I would consider core Touhou content, which, as it implies, means the most popular mainstream Touhou stuff that any fan worth their salt knows about, as well as people outside of the community proper. I know that was all a bit vague, so let me go into specifics. Gameplay-wise, Touhou 7 is just a solid game with solid mechanics. It's always fun to go back to and is pretty easy as far as Touhou games go, so no wonder it's among the most popular games in the series. The score has some absolutely iconic tracks like Necrophantasia and Border of Life, and these tracks are tied to absolutely iconic Touhou characters. Yukari and Yuyuko are both fan favorites, but there's other popular characters like Yomu and Shen. It's also the first time Sakuya has been playable, for what that's worth. And speaking of playable characters, Touhou 7 has some extremely fun and varied shot types, which is saying a lot because in my opinion, the quality of the shot types in the series only goes up from here. One thing that PCB does better than most Touhou games that come after it is how your bullets feel. It strikes a perfect balance between making your progression through power levels feel fair and making your shots feel strong without sacrificing either. It doesn't feel like you're shooting wet noodles like in some other Touhou games. PCB has so many iconic and fun spell cards, with relatively few that make me go like, what the hell was ZUN thinking? And two amazing extra stages to boot. It's one of my comfort games that I default to when I can't decide when I want to play. To close this video out, I want to take a look at a very interesting section of the omake text next time. ZUN says, I want to keep making the same types of work, but I wonder how long the world will let me do that. I guess I can only do the same thing over and over. Come to think of it, that's exactly right, is what I suppose I have to say. Honestly, I wonder if I just want to keep making the same thing over and over, replacing the story and game data and making improvements over time. Maybe I could arrive at a new world by creating the same work and not being distracted by tomorrow's novelties. You know, more haste, less speed.
Hey, what the fuck does that mean?
There's something really poetic about this quote. 2 decades later and ZUN is still creating Touhou games. Even though he's a family man now, he's never been too distracted by tomorrow's novelties, continuing to find time to practice his art. Honestly, I think that's a sort of dedication that everyone should take notes from. I guess what I'm trying to say is, no matter what life throws at you, no matter if what you create is considered outdated or overdone by today's standards, create art that makes you happy, and eventually you'll become comfortable in your own little world, your creation's becoming a happy place for you, away from the ever-changing stresses of life, where you can escape to once in a while to just be yourself. I've been the Gensokyo Reviewer, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like and subscribe to support my little passion project. See you in 2024 for my next yearly upload. I'm just kidding. Or am I?